So the thing about passion, okay, and chasing your passion is there are some people in this field who tell you to go and do that. And I am actually not in that category, okay? I'm a person who says chase your passion if you're good at it. Okay. And I think that this is solid, logical advice. A lot of people say just don't chase the passion. But the people who tell you just do what you're passionate about, if you don't have the aptitudes and there's not opportunity there, it's not a good thing. But I want to tell you a little bit of a story that really blew my mind and taught me everything I needed to know about passion. And it goes like this. The story starts when I was 15 years old when I went to boarding school. And I got a fantastic roommate. Named Evelyn, and we became incredible lifelong friends, and we stayed friends all the way. We were very close. We roomed together in boarding school, and we grew up together. And then we went to the same college together, and we stayed incredibly close friends. Well, then she was extremely smart, and she went off to England to study, and she became a great scholar. And she stayed in England. She married a British guy, and she started building an incredible career in academia. And we stayed very good friends. And look, life is tough. We went through some very, very tough things together. She had a divorce. She lost her mother. I mean, look, life is, and I had my own issues. And we stayed very good friends. And I can't tell you how much I respected her mind. And along the way, she started to have children. She, in fact, had children before I did. And in fact, she had a daughter when I was just married. And I went over to England to meet her new daughter. And I held her daughter in my arms. And it was the first baby I ever really held, to be honest. And I thought, oh my God, this is scary. Can I possibly do this? And I fell in love with that little daughter and just with Evelyn's experience of having her. So life goes on, and Evelyn continues to have children, and so do I, and we stay very close friends. And what happens is her kids are sort of entering teenage years, and so are mine. And one time, Jack and I went over to England for work, went over to London for work, and Evelyn, by this time, was married to her current husband, who's a very a well-known public scientist in England. And we go over, and Jack loved her husband, and we all got along great, and we killed a bottle of wine in the backyard. We had like a little cookout outside, the four of us. And we do what parents do when they get together. We started talking about our kids. And what they do when parents get together, if you've never noticed this, if you've not watched this, they just sort of go down the children. We sort of started with my oldest and went down with what each kid was doing. And then we started talking about her kids. And she started off with that oldest child, and who I thought was so special and who I had watched grow up and I'd seen many times. And she started off talking about her, and she announced that this daughter had, in ninth grade, dropped out of high school to move into a basement and start a band with her boyfriend. And I just completely lost my, well, let's just say I became inappropriate. I was so upset about it. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You cannot let this happen. And she was a pretty hands-off, laissez-faire kind of mother. She had a different mothering style than I did. Just we have different personalities. And I said, you can't let this happen. I mean, sometimes we have to actually interfere and be the parent, Evelyn. And Jack was like, Susie, cool down. But I had known her since I was 15, and I felt like, okay, there's times where you sort of intervene and there's times when you don't. And I was upset because this daughter of hers, I loved her so much, and she was so special, and she was so uniquely smart, and I felt very invested in her. And I said, no, you actually can't let this happen. She's in ninth grade. She cannot drop out and start a rock and roll band. Are you kidding me? And Evelyn really held her ground and really blew me off. And she said, she actually has a very good voice. And I screamed, everyone has a good voice. Now, Evelyn actually had an incredible voice. She was in the Harvard choir. She was incredible. We used to go watch her and like have tears in her eyes. And so I knew, she did it. She must have had a good voice, inherited it from Evelyn. But I did scream this famous line, at least famous in my family, everyone has a good voice. And at that point, we were sitting at a picnic table, and Jack literally squeezed that place above your knee that's quite painful, and he just shut me down because I was off my rocker on it. And the night ended, and we, of course, gave each other hugs and kisses, and we got into the car, and I start to say to Jack, oh my God, could you believe that thing? And he just beat me to the punch. And he was like, you were just absolutely out of line. That is their business. That is her daughter. And I said, no. A rock and roll band. Okay. Yeah, she's going to be a big star. Just like, and she dropped out of school. Do you understand this has long-term implications? And he just said to me, just back off, Susie, you're wrong. And I said, no, Jack, I love you. And you are right almost all of the time. But this time I'm right. That girl is special. So I'm really glad that Florence from Florence and the Machine became famous quickly, because I didn't have to suffer as she like slowly but surely became famous, because she became famous almost immediately when she came out to the scene, and I had to just lower my head in shame and just, and I have to say, to her great credit, Evelyn never brought this conversation up to me ever, that I like completely excoriated her and said, don't let that child become a rock and roll star. I'm glad that she almost overnight became the huge star that she is. One of the things my children hate the most is when I drag them to a Florence concert. They love Florence and they are huge fans of hers. We all are. But when I bring them to a Florence concert and they have to watch me crying the entire time saying, I was such an idiot. How will she ever forgive me? I want you to know Florence has forgiven me. She thinks this story is hysterical. And Evelyn never told her about it because she's a good mother. And we all have a good laugh about it. So look, what's the point of this story besides the fact that I was inappropriate at a party? The point of this story is that there are some people who absolutely should chase their dreams. She had a dream of a life. It was in her. Nothing could deny her. She did a very bold thing. She went for it, and she was massively talented, and the world needed her, and she was different, and the world wanted her. She's evolved. She's changed. She's grown as an artist. And, I don't know. I don't want to make the Swifties hate me, but she was obviously just on Taylor Swift's new album with the song Florida, and that is the best song on the album. But I would say that I learned a lot about the fact that there are some people who are gifted and have a passion and absolutely must not listen to the naysayers. They must not listen to people like me, the practical people who say everybody can sing. Not everyone could sing like she could. And I think that the beautiful thing is that she had a mom like Evelyn who was like basically shut up over there. And she did what she had to do. And I think even I didn't obviously say to Florence anything along the way, but if she had heard me, she would have just shook her head at me. If you have that kind of self-belief, if you have that kind of talent, then you should not be denied and you should keep fighting for your passion. But let me just say that again. If you have that kind of self-belief and that kind of talent, and those are two very important things. The self-belief keep you going when people say no. And there's a million stories about people who became famous when people were telling them they could never do it. They were rejected 1,000 times. Their book got rejected 100 times. All those things. You have to have self-belief. You have to keep believing. But you have to have the talent and you have to have the gifts that people want. And maybe they won't emerge immediately and maybe you have to keep on building them. But you've got to have that and there has to be some affirmation. And so that is my story about passion after Labor Day. If you've got a passion and you think you can do it, you should do it. I don't want to hold you back. The world will edit your dreams, so have your dreams.